So, what problems would we like to go over first? Let's first do 11. Anything from 11 through 18. Anybody have any requests for 11 through 18? Okay then. Let's demo one just in case. I know there's some people that have questions. Please look at number 8. 7. Actually 6. Alright. So, the way we said this yesterday is you'd ask yourself, if you plugged a number into the variable that's there, so let's say I plugged in 6. Plugged in 6. What would you do, what steps would you do, order of operation wise, and in what order? So if you're going to simplify this order of operations, what would you do first into the 6? Divide by negative. Okay? So if I did that, I'd get negative 2. And then what would I do to here? What would I do to this? What's right here? What's right here? Add 5. So first thing I'd do is divide by negative 3, then I'd add 5, or the negative 2, and I'd get positive 3. So these are the steps you would take in order to solve this order of operations. First you would divide by negative 3, then you would add 5. So remember, you're going to do the opposite and in the reverse direction. So you're, what? And I'm just picking any random number right here. We're not actually using this to solve the problem, it's just an example. So I picked 6 just because it's divisible by 3, but I could have picked 5, I could have picked 1. I'm just picking a nice number. So, and right here, now we're going to do the opposite. So what's the opposite of adding 5? And what's the opposite of dividing by negative 3? Multiplying by negative 3. So this tells me I need to do this first and this second for my real problem. And the one I made up here, that's to let us know. And eventually you want to be able to look at this and say, okay, if I, without writing anything out, you can do this in your head. Okay, first I would divide by negative 3 and then add 5. So the reverse of that is subtract 5 and multiply by negative 3. We're going to get good at doing that mentally. But at least now we have it all written down. Okay? Have it all written down. So first, I just have to follow this. So minus 5 on both sides, just like that. That's the first thing. That equals 0. C divided by negative 3 now equals 2. Now remember those new standards, I've been mentioning this, the neatness counts. Because you have to be able to communicate your work. That's what the standard says, in Common Core. So if you're doing nothing else, if you remember how to do all this, focus on lining up your equal signs. Okay. Notice how this became 0, I just kind of left a space here, so this part here and this part here are all lined up. It's basically the same way you look in a textbook. You're trying to keep it neat so anybody can understand it. Alright, so we did this step. Next, multiply by negative 3. So I go over here. I can use parentheses, that's fine. So I multiply both sides by negative 3. Negative 3 cancel out. Notice how I put the negative 3 on the top of the fraction. If you're ever given a number to multiply, and you have to multiply by a fraction, it automatically goes on the top. So they cancel out. So now we have C equals 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. And again, notice how I continue the alignment. These things all lined up. The C's all line up. So even though there's a space right here, that's okay. It's just so that anybody can read your work and understand it and make sense of it. Alright. Now, some of you stopped right there. Remember, this is only halfway down. There's 2 directions. One of them said solve. The other one said check. So plug it in and now check. We have negative 6 all over negative 3 plus 5 equals 7. Now it's kind of like what we did over here earlier, where we're just trying to figure out what steps. Basically the same thing. Negative 6 divided by negative 3 is positive 2. And remember, we're kind of doing this. Does it equal 7? We don't know. So now 2 plus 5 is definitely 7. So now the fact that this is a true statement, that's how I know I have the correct answer. If I got something that's false, like 6 equals 7, and negative 2 equals 7, I know that I have the wrong answer. So you can't put a check unless this last step is true. This is a true statement. So remember, for all your problems, just like I did yesterday in class, just like it's on the video on School Loop, got recorded. Just like the directions say in the book. It's all check everything. Okay, let's go back. I want to see, anybody want to do 19 through 22? See any of those done? Questions on any of those? 19 through 22? A little bit different here. Let's make sure we're okay. Let me try 20. Example of 20. Now, same step. I'm just going to repeat. So how well can you repeat the steps? So I'm going to take this. I'm going to pick any number randomly here. 5 plus, let's say, 1. Just to figure out my steps. If I was going to simplify this, what would I do first? To this 1. What would I do first with the 1? Would I add the 5 and divide it by negative 2 first? Yeah, so first you would add 5. Next, I get 6 over negative 2. Then I would divide by negative 2. So the opposite of that would be multiply by negative 2 first, and then subtract 5. That's the correct order. So you notice over the last one I divided first, I multiplied by subtracted first, then I multiplied. Now I'm multiplying first, I'm now subtracting. So you see how valuable it is to actually write this out. So yeah, if you plug the number in here, first thing you have to do is add 5 and then divide it by 2. So we're doing the opposite. We're doing the exact opposite. So again, this step I'm erasing, that's what something you're going to want to be able to do mentally eventually. Now I know, multiply both sides by negative 2. That's the first thing. Notice how I'm multiplying an integer by a fraction, so I'm going to put the negative 2 on the top. Then over here, negative 2 right here is supposed to simplify. So I have negative 2 times 11. Negative 2 cancels with negative 2. We have 5 plus 1. Step 1 done. Step 2, subtract 5. Subtract 5. Subtract 5. Negative 27. So if you're at negative 22 degrees, it's 5 degrees colder. So it's negative, so it's colder. Down to negative 27. That's 0. Bring down the m. Notice how I'm writing it straight underneath it. I'm not moving anything around. Okay. If you want to, you can do this last step where you flip it around and say, okay, m equals negative 27. That's it. Okay, halfway done. Well, we're done with step 1. That's the solve. Now let's do the check. Does 11 equal, question mark, does 11 equal 5 plus negative 27, all divided by negative 2? Is that true? That's what the check is for. So let's see. 11 equals, first thing you do is the top. Good, negative 22. And then all over negative 2. So yeah, it looks like negative 22 divided by negative 2 is positive 11. So yes, that's a true statement. So it checks out. So that's how the checks work. Have to get something true. Now for equations, it's going to be the exact same number on both sides. For inequalities, you might get something like this. You might get 2 is greater than negative 11. Is this true? Is 2 bigger than negative 11? Yeah. So if you get that for an inequality check, that's okay. Because inequalities, you don't actually have to use the exact same number you get here. You can use many numbers because there's an infinite number of answers. So just know for equations, you have to use exact number because there's only one answer. But inequalities, there's a lot of different answers. And we're going to look at those right now. All right, so one of these, any requests? Yeah? 12. Okay, let's look at 12 together. Good. All right. Okay, let's look at this. If I had 2/5, let's say, times 10, and then plus 7, what would be the first thing I'd have to do here? For the 10, what would I do first? Well, what would I multiply? What would I, yeah. So I could do this, but you would multiply by 2/5 first, right? And after you did that, okay, we get 4. Then what would you do to this number? You would add 7. So there's our steps. Let's do them backwards. Instead of adding 7, we're going to subtract 7. Instead of multiplying by 2/5, we're going to divide by 2/5. Now, when you divide by 2/5, that's the same as multiplying by 5 over 2. Okay. So remember, if you have some number like 9 divided by 2/5, what would you do to solve that? You would say, oh, dividing by 2/5, that's the same as multiplying by 5 over 2. So a little bit tricky here. We can't just go exact opposite and say, oh, multiply by 2/5, divide by 2/5. So divide by 2/5 means to multiply by 5 over 2. And one little catch on that. One little catch on that. Now we have our steps. First I'm going to subtract 7, and then I'm going to multiply by 5 over 2. Here we go. Subtract 7 both sides. What do we get here? Negative 6. Okay. Step 1 done. Next, multiply by 5 over 2. Multiply by 5 over 2 both sides. Remember, we're multiplying a regular number by a fraction. Line up the tops. If you want to, you can do this. You don't have to. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And we end up with just 1n on the right hand side. 1n. We don't usually have to write the 1, all right? We don't usually have to write that. Over here, 2 goes into 16 8 times. So we have 5 times 8 with a negative. Negative 4. Now, if negative 40 is bigger than all our answers, that means all our answers are less than negative 40. So remember, use the number line. If it asks you to graph, it didn't ask you to do this, you don't have to do this, just point it out. Pick a number, make sure it's true. So is 0 an answer? Is negative 40 bigger than 0? No. So 0 is over here, right? And 0 is not an answer because when 0 is not, negative 40 is not bigger than 0. So that's how you know it's going to be the other direction. Everything over here. So that's how you know which way it's pointing. I know it's tempting just to want to look at the arrow and say, oh, it's pointing right, so I point right. But notice how right when I plugged it in, yeah, it's not a true statement, so 0 is not an answer. And when you flip it around here, remember this means the exact same thing. Negative 40 is bigger than all our answers. If you look over here, here's all our answers. Yeah, negative 40 is the biggest one of all these, because it's furthest to the right. And another way of saying the same thing, our answers are all less than negative 40. Yeah, all our answers here are smaller than this number, because this is a left. So these are two ways of saying the exact same thing. Just know that you'll see this one more often. So when you do a check on this, you have to pick, you can pick negative 40 because it is equal to. But you can pick actually anything that's less than negative 40 as well. So let's do that. We have negative 16 greater than equal to 2/5 times what number you want? How about negative 50? Is negative 50 less than negative 40? Is negative 50 over here somewhere? Yeah, so negative 50 is an answer. Negative 50 would be right here. I could have chose negative 45, I could have chose negative 41, I could have chose any of these numbers. I'm just picking a number that will divide by 5 really easy. So you can make your life easier and pick numbers that divide easy. So here we go. Is negative 16 bigger than this? Let's see here. 5 goes into 50 10 times. So now we have 2 times 10 with a negative. Negative 20. Is this true? Is negative 16 bigger than negative 20? Yes. So notice how we have different numbers, but it's still a true statement. Because it's inequality, we have an infinite number of possible numbers we can plug in. So as long as it's true, it's okay. But for equations, only equations with equal signs, these have to be identical. Alright, so that's straightforward what you want to have for all your assignments. So this, and so many people didn't do the checks, now you're a believer of what I mean. I want you to follow the directions. I'm going to collect it from everybody tomorrow. If you already got a stamp, you're good to go. If you need more time, you can turn in tomorrow. So we'll have 2 homeworks due tomorrow. Finish up this one, and then we'll have today's assignment as well. Here we go. Alright, so I just want to go through this briefly. It's going to be a nice review for you, so if you have to finish the checks today, that's like an extra, 5 to 7 minutes only. It's not a lot. But what's some similarities and differences between these two? See it? What's similar and different? Yeah, hopefully you can see that, okay, that's plus, this is an equals. So it's important to know everything I'm going to show you only works for these problems right here. These are called proportions. This is what's on your homework that I just handed out. Proportions. It has an equal sign. So everything we're about to do, make sure you only do this with proportions. You don't do it with anything else. You don't try to start doing it when you see a plus sign or a minus sign. It's just a common mistake for some people. Okay? They want to start doing what I'm about to show you on every problem, but it only works when you have a fraction equal to a fraction. Another way of saying that is a ratio equal to a ratio. Another way of saying fraction is ratio. All right. So something that's true about proportions. If you multiply the cross or the diagonals, it should be equal. So is 2 times 2, is that equal to 1 times 4? Yeah, that's how you know they're proportional. That's how you know the two fractions are going to be equal to each other. It's kind of like a check here. We're saying, is this true? Yes, it's proportional. So there's 2 parts to this. Number 1, can you identify it as proportional by doing this? And number 2, if there's a number missing, can we find the missing number? So 2 types of problems. So here, do the cross products equal each other? Here. So does 1 times 9 equal 3 times 3? Yes. What about this? Does this times this equal this times this? No. So we're getting different numbers on both sides. We'll get 2 times 15 is 30. 3 times 9 is 27. So if you got this while you're doing a check, you'd say, oh no, that's not the right answer. I did it wrong. So yeah, same thing here. It doesn't check out. It's not equal. What about here?
Yeah.
12 times 6? And 4 times 18? Yeah, those will come out the same. A little bit more multiplication, but a close. Question? It's not proportional. This question is it proportional or not? So this would be yes, this would be no, this would be yes. It just means basically, are these two fractions really equal to each other? Is 1/3 really equal to 3/9? That's basically what it's asking, yes or no. Is 2/3 really equal to 9/15? No, it's not. And this is how we're checking to see if it's true. Good question. What about here, you guys? Okay, let's just go through them. First one, what do you think?
No.
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah, because 5 times 7 is not going to, that's 35, so it's not going to be equal to 35 times 3, so no. Here?
Yeah.
Yes. Here? Yes? Alright. Remember the distributive property here? If you can't do 3 times 42 in your head, do 3 times 40 plus 3 times 6. Or 3 times 2, which is 6. So 3 times 40 is 120. 3 times 2 is 6, 126. And here you can do 7 times 20, and then minus 7 times 2. It's 20 minus 3 is 18. And we'll get, yes? Yeah. And here? No. Yeah. So we can check. So that means these two fractions, yes, are equal to each other. These two fractions, yes, they are equal to each other. These two fractions, no, they're not equal to each other. That's what that means. Alright. So same thing here. We're just going to cross multiply. Here's your problems on your paper. We're going to do, does 12 times 12 equal, sorry, let's say 9 times x. Okay. So just 144, oh, no, I'm sorry, yeah. So we're just going to solve this. So same thing we did last night. How many times was 144 divided by 7? Let's figure that out. I think it's like 9 goes in there 1 time. Left over is 5. 9 goes into 54. 6 times?
Yeah.
Oh, we get 16. So there's your answer. This is how you're going to do your homework. Any questions, clarifications here? So I multiplied across diagonally. I got an equation, and I just solved for a variable like you guys did 2 nights ago. Just one step. Just 5. Alright. Here we go. One more. So we have n times 6, which is the same as 6n, equals 12 times 7. I'm going to show you a little trick. Notice how does 6 go into any of these numbers? Yeah, it goes into 12. So it might be easier for some of you. If it divides evenly, go ahead and divide right away. Notice how we can do 6 goes into 12 2 times, and now 2 times 7 is 14. You'll get the same answer if you multiply it out and do the long way, 84 divided by 6. But now the number's a little bit smaller this way. So that's all you need to do for tonight. Okay, pretty straightforward, and finish your checks. Okay, cross, multiply, and divide. All right. Have a good day.